Alright, it's Ross Raven here, aka Nefarious Yordle, and in this one I wanted to analyze a Rengar jungle from Challenger, JAG UmTi. JAG stands for Jin Air Gaming, I think? Not sure, but yeah, this is a competitive level player in Korean Challenger solo queue. So we're gonna be going over what this guy does and what the enemy Shyvana does, all the stuff that goes into the game, from which we might take something away. Because jungling is typically just one of those things that's very, very intensive on the macro play, on the decision making, so it's very good to analyze that part. Because, you know, if you're playing AD carry or these lanes, right, oftentimes a lot of the things you do in those really come down to execution. Even if you understand the concept, you have to execute it right. And of course that's very, very practice intensive compared to something more conceptual like jungle. So without further ado, let's go into it. We have a silly invade going on. We don't really care about that stuff. So yeah, let's just ask ourselves what happens here. So this Rengar came from the top side. He's just screwing around, and you have to ask yourself, what does a Shyvana do in the early game? Now, if you're plat or below, Shyvana can just like ask for a bottom lane leash. She gets it, and she just does wolves, and then her buff, and then she maybe does another camp like Raptor camp. You know, she has options like that. She just goes for standard jungle route. And what's going to happen is that Shyvana's going to be at a fourth of her health, or less than half of her health at least. And if the Rengar just comes in, then boom, dead. So instead, in high elo, what players do is they avoid having to avoid clearing both buffs at once and simply stick to one side of the jungle and try to avoid the enemy jungler that way. That does mean that you might have to concede a buff, but at least that way you don't get killed instantly, right? Like, and that's, you know, if you're Shyvana, you have to just level up to level 6 without dying. That is, you know, something you'll have to be willing to do sometimes. Give up some resources early on. That's just the jungler lifestyle sometimes. And what you see this Shyvana do is a very adapted route. So she literally goes for wolves, then Gromp, then blue, right? And then she will look for the Scuttler. That's her route. So if you don't do both buffs ASAP, and you don't get a leash, any of that, right? So what you then do instead is just sort of take as many camps as you can before taking a buff. And then here at the red buff, unless it's being contested, you can do the same thing. The condition is always very simple. Gromp can't be taken because, you know, simply because it spawns later. So if you want a leash, you have to start at a buff. That's why people usually take the buff first. And if it can be contested, then sometimes, you're right, if you lose too much health, you don't want that to happen either. So that's the only reason why you don't always wait with doing it. But in this case, right, because you're not taking your ret, you're not on the way there anyway, you don't want a leash here, you just want that blue buff as late as you can for the experience. It's very experience-based jungler Shyvana. Farm junglers that struggle in the early game are experience-based. You want to find ways to maximize your XP early on. So what some Rengar players do, what this guy didn't do, is they took one little wolf guy, then they go to the Gromp, then they do the buff, and then they do the rest of the wolves. It's all very optimized. It has to do with how much experience you get from things and when you level up, just to make sure that you get the most experience. Right, that's what some of these junglers do that heavily depend on a level 6 power spike. So Rengar against Shyvana doesn't go for power farming until level 6. That much may be clear by now. So what this Rengar is going to do is the Rengar imagine that you know that Shyvana does this kind of route where she goes for the bottom side jungle into the Scuttler. Then you know that she's going to be at the Scuttler at around 2 minutes and 30 seconds, right? Just about after you've cleared this Raptor camp. So what this Rengar is going to do is he's going to do Raptors. Instead of doing his red buff, he's going to look for the Shyvana at her, at the Scuttler. So he kites his camp perfectly because obviously he needs to have as much health as he can for this camp. for this in contest, you might say, right? It's not really an invade, it's in the river. But yeah, so he clears the camp and goes to the scuttler, right? And now you can see something very interesting. So he looks here and very quickly sees, whoop, this is being taken, very quickly juggles to the rush, and Shyvana instantly notices he's there and actually backs off of this. So both junglers are playing this quite crisp. So now what Shyvana does, Shyvana has two options: run to a raptor camp and try to clear it before Rengar shows up, or back and maybe get there a little bit later, because this distance is slightly shorter than going all the way from the fountain, right? Plus the 7 seconds you take, right? So that might mean that Rengar successfully can take that camp. But does it take Rengar 7 seconds to clear the camp? Like, if he just waits for you, he can't kill you, so he has to start clearing the camps himself. So in my opinion, with that taken into consideration, the main pressure Rengar has is kill pressure. I would say just go back and remove the kill pressure. That's just my judgment as a jungler myself. I am not a challenger level jungler, right? I might not even be a master tier jungler, so take that at face value. But if you ask me, just go back and, right, maybe concede the big raptor. Of course, Shyvana doesn't know if Rengar has a smite left, right? But she could potentially know that he's already smited. But I can understand that that's just beyond anyone's grasp, right? So Rengar also might get this smite at some point. I don't think it would be in time. So now the Rengar is like, Rengar doesn't care one bit that they know what he's doing, right? Because there's no counterplay to this, right? So Shyvana knows exactly what Rengar's about to do, because he showed mid and literally just walked up to her jungle. So she tries to avoid getting killed. The Ryze and Cho'Gath both instantly go on move. Very interesting play by them, right? So this is something which you have to look out for. There's a bomb plant here, so Rengar is safe to go out if he has to. But in this case, he has all the support from his teammates. So that makes this a whole lot more effective. So kudos to that. So Rengar simply kites it towards the brush and will get the smite on it, right? Like he just got that back up. And Shyvana simply cleared the raptors and gave up her buff. Now, if you look at the fact that she had to clear raptors now, I feel like if she just simply backed and went to her buff, this would not have happened, right? This would certainly not have happened. The Ryze, yeah, I don't want to make any speculations beyond that point, but I feel like that's just the kind of early game stuff that you have to look out for. Now, because they have a ward here, they notice Shyvana going to Krugs. So what Rengar does is actually move to the Krugs as well. I have to ask you, if you just saw a Rengar invade your jungle, and you had to concede the buff because you couldn't contest it, you didn't go back, would you now do the Krugs, or would you back off and reset towards the Gromp, towards the bot side? Right? It's like, I think it's extremely greedy to hang on to this top side any longer with such a low amount of health. Right? That's just, in my mind, that's just silly. I mean, you already know that this is, like, they probably know that this guy is a competitive level player, and even just beyond that, he's obviously played immaculately so far. So I really think you ought to respect that a little bit more and just concede the Krugs. If he wanted to invade the Krugs point blank, I don't think he would have, but he could have, right? But really, if, as a matter of fact, if you go there, you're literally just wasting time, because it's so probable that they deep warded this because of this invade, right? So first blood goes over to Kalista, but that's none of our business. We're not analyzing bot lane here. So yeah, it's so let's keep this show on the road. Let's analyze. Let's do a bit of recap so far. So Rengar now has a pretty significant lead. He got the Shyvana's buff and got her Krugs. So that's a pretty substantial lead. Rengar is not super strong pre-level 6. So that's a pretty nice start for the Rengar. There is an Infernal Drake up, which is nice. If he gets level 6 first and then their bot lane has the pressure from first blood, that's very nice. So they might be able to get the Infernal. They have a huge sort of setup here for pushing this game into a win. But they're not quite there yet. So let's just look at what happens when everyone goes base. Rengar now goes base and never did his red buff. So his red buff is still up. Now in the meanwhile, the Shyvana started Wolves, then did Gromp, then did Blue. So her Wolves and Gromp are about to be back up. So unless Shyvana wants to literally concede those two camps, right, she cannot really gank top lane. If she ganks for top lane here, what the Rengar can do is Rengar has control over Drake and over her two camps. Now considering how much pressure they have, if you want to be greedy, you can simply take the camps and then look if you can still take Drake. Obviously that's a very greedy play, but it pays off if you get it, right? Like, you completely denied the Shyvana out of anything. There's no way for her to come back anymore then, right? So I think that's, since you'll have such a huge lead on Shyvana, I think that's the right thing to do, right? Making this game of 4v5 is more effective than that very, very tiny risk that you somehow lose to Drake in such a one game. So that's how I would play it. And Shyvana does go out into the topside jungle, which is still deep warded, by the way. So they still know where she is. She's already now removed all pressure, essentially, right? So I'm pretty sure this gank should not work. Of course, I never know if it actually does. So here Rengar just snoops in for a mid lane. This is just very dependent. If you, as a jungler, you have to look at the lanes and constantly be aware of which ones are low and which ones are not, right? So in this case, it's just a clear case of paying attention to the health bars of the lanes, right? Like while you're walking and thinking of things, you actually do these kind of decisions. So Rengar has to help the Ryze shove. I mean, has to is a big word, but let's look at what the lane looks like. So there's two possibilities. It might be in a neutral position, or it might slow push into them. If it slow pushes into the red team, then they have to hard shove this. Which, in my mind, if you look at this minion wave, they could simply back off. So I really don't feel like they needed to hard shove this. But I understand that they did. Now they notice Shyvana moving into their jungle, so the Rengar actually goes to chase after the Shyvana. I really don't understand what the play is here. Like, this to me, you can be a godlike jungler, but I really disagree with the play here. Like, there is a Wolf camp up and a Gromp camp up, and you know the Shyvana is right here. So in my mind, since there's no wards here, like, you can simply walk through their jungle, take the Wolves, take the Gromp, and then maybe clear the Drake. I don't know. I'm not a Rengar player, but you can probably at least get those two camps and secure your jungle. Considering how this Cho'Gath is already on top of the Shyvana, I really don't think that the way that he's playing it is very beneficial. They might get the Shyvana here. So, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't really agree with this. Like, unless you were to go to their jungle straight up right now, I don't really agree with this play. Right, because Cho'Gath would have already gotten the Shyvana. Give Cho'Gath the gold, you put Cho'Gath ahead, you deny the Shyvana, you help the bot lane with that by getting that Drake, right? Giving them that damage bonus, giving everyone the damage bonus. Who am I kidding? Like, you can literally help everyone in one go here. And instead you go for the 300 gold or something. Right, so that's just, yeah, that's not something I agree with personally. But I don't know, right? Like, he might know something I don't, right? Like, you might miss something. I don't know. Blitzcrank roaming here. Very interesting. Did you see that? By the way, did you see that? If someone knows what it is, please let me know in the comments. Look at this. If you notice the minimap very closely, right? Look at this. See this blue blob here? I have no idea what that is. but it's something. It's something. I have no idea. I've never seen that in my games either. It's maybe just some artifact of the replay client. But yeah. Alright, now this Blitzcrank just walks by. He noticed, of course, that the Blitzcrank was here and that, you know, he's walking back here. So he just goes for the sneaky outplay. Like, he wants to probably move into this territory anyway to secure the scuttle and look if he can do something with Drake or invade. So, you know, the rule is if you have pressure... look at pressure this way. Look at pressure in terms of like a diagonal line through the river. And the more pressure people have in certain parts of the map, the more that bubbles, that diagonal line is pushed into the enemy base, right? So if you take a turret, that's like a part of the map that you no longer have pressure on, right? Like you no longer have control over it. Right? Pressure should lead to control. And if you take the Rift Scuttler, you get vision control because of your pressure, right? Pressure and control are just from one leads to the other, right? Pressure causes control. If you have pressure but you don't gain control, then you're an idiot, right? So because you want to move up here anyway, it made sense to be there anyway. So it's in no case is a waste of time. But even just knowing that this guy probably will just take the risky route, you know. I don't know, it's like, you know, that's just how solo queue players are. In competitive, most players would probably play it safe, play it risk-free, but this is not competitive, is it? So, that's a free kill picked up again. He's picking up a lot of free kills, which is kind of sad because I'd rather see him jungle than see him pick up free kills, right? Like, I'm here to analyze what he does and how you could emulate that in your own games. If you look at his very proactive gameplay, which in my mind could have been more proactive, right? You can learn a lot from that. Like, if you have the pressure, if you have the control, move into the jungle. Oh, you knew that she started bot side? Just move into those wolf and gromp camps, right? Very easy. So, he does that now anyway, right? But in my mind, he's already way too late. It's just that Shyvana went mid, so she never looked at the gromp camp. Here... I'm not sure why he doesn't secure the scuttle and try to do Drake. I know that this blue buff is coming up, but in my mind that doesn't matter because the Infernal Drake is well worth it to give everyone that power spike this early on. You know, leads compound, so the more leads you can accumulate early on, the stronger they are. That's just, you know, that's just how compounding works. It's how snowballing works. Really, compounding and snowballing are just, you know, the same term, just different wording. Depending on what you're doing, people will call it one way or the other, right? It's just a bit of terminology. Like, it would be very strange to say that your investments snowball, right? That would be quite strange. Now, the Shyvana, so Rengar did make the call to go for blue buff. I disagree with that. But he can do that, right? He can go for the blue buff. I'm fine with that. So the Shyvana is actually spotted trying to invade here. So literally all he has to do is just run after her and kill her. There's already no way out for her because of the movement speed from the Rengar. So look at him go. Flashes over the wall. Boom. And that's what you do. So at this point the game is over, right? The game is over. Shyvana's 0-2. She will lose the rest of her jungle, essentially. And this is just going haywire now. Nobody's losing. Nobody else is losing hard. So there's nobody to contest this. So he wants to take the Krug camp. You can jump from this brush to that one. And he has a pink ward to do that with. So he puts up a pink ward. And because Maokai is missing, he wants to wait out the Maokai a little bit. So he has the patience to do that, and he just lets the Maokai casually walk by and literally waits and waits. Look at how patient he is as a jungler. That's impressive. Like, that's genuinely impressive, right? And once he's spotted out, boom, over he goes. So, very interested to know what would have happened if Maokai stayed away, what he would have done. Because at some point, he would have had to make some decision. But, yeah. He didn't have to, so we'll never know. But yeah, again, very proactive. Kills the Shyvana, obviously instantly starts running into the enemy jungle. That's what you do on a jungler. Like so many people in Gold Platinum, what they do is, okay, I see Shyvana here, okay, I killed her. Alright, let's do my Gromp. And now let's move to my Wolves, and now let's move to my Raptors. And they just jungle in their own jungle all game long. But that's not what you do, right? Like, you have pressure. Shyvana's dead, so the entire jungle is just completely yours for the taking. Might as well take advantage of that. So the red buff is coming up, and what are you gonna do about it, right? Shyvana at this point cannot contest it, because if they meet, she's dead. She's level 5. So Rengar, her jungle is now Rengar's jungle. It's as simple as that. And Rengar here goes, so he notices, he's looking at the lanes. We can't actually look at the lanes themselves, we have to go off the minimap. But at this point it's pretty clear that the Azir is looking for an engage. Not really looking for an engage, already did engage, is trying to finish off the Rise. But essentially, if you look at Rengar, he still doesn't have his ultimate, so it's very hard for him to get in here and actually do something. So instead he decided to go for the red buff. If he had ultimate, he would have 100% killed the Azir here, just letting you know. That's what he would have done. Azir also still has flash, so it's very hard to get him. Flash and cleanse. So hard to do something in that one. And as you can see, this is just what a pop-off Rengar looks like. Again, another 4 minutes have passed. So let's just do another real recap. So the game started out, and this invade started clearing up. You have the Shyvana and the Rengar. How are they gonna route? Shyvana's gonna route purely bot side oriented. She's gonna start with Wolves. You know, like, Shogath actually invaded their other side, so they know for sure that Shyvana starts bot side. You want to get the early intelligence on your enemy jungler if you know for sure that they're starting on one side, which with Shyvana you otherwise wouldn't, because she can do the exact same thing with Raptors and then red buff Krugs or something like that, right? Just making sure that you stay as far away from the Rengar as possible, instead of Raptors Krugs red, which puts you right at the red camp at like 2 minutes and what is it, 25 seconds, right? So she didn't do that. But yeah, that's just the kind of thing you want to know. You want to just go into the jungle and get that vision early on. It might go wrong sometime, but more often than not, it will go right. If you can actually use this intelligence, it's worth doing this kind of stuff. Obviously, that's what it's all centered about. Like, if you don't know what to do with the fact that Shyvana starts bot side, then it's completely useless, right? Like, if Shyvana... The risk that you're taking in low elo would be that if Shyvana just goes for bot side into the top side, then she's an idiot, but she would get away with it. So what in my mind would be even more sensible than Rengar's current route is move into the top side jungle, because there are two scenarios. Shyvana shows up and you kill her, or Shyvana doesn't show up and you get the buff. In that case, you could potentially, like if you got scouted out as well, then obviously, which indeed you would have, because there's a ward here. But in that case, you literally could have just gotten into this buff, and Shyvana would have to risk her life taking your red buff and taking this bomb plant. So, yeah, she could do that. So I guess that's a trade-off. You can make up your own mind about these things, right? Like, these are very close evaluations. The most important thing is that you think about these things. The worst thing you can do is not think about them, not make the wrong decision here. Because either way that you route here, as long as it's proactive and looking to do something to Shyvana, you're always doing it right in some sense, right? Whether it's the absolute best isn't that relevant. So let's just think about that once more. If Shyvana goes to the top side, right, which is very risky, but let's say she does that. She only does 2 camps and goes top side, or she gets a leash, wolves, red buff. Then you get the Scuttler and maybe the Gromp, right? So you get the Scuttler and the Gromp, and then you can move back into your own jungle. If instead she goes for a level 3 Drake, she's dead. If instead she goes for the Scuttler, she's dead, right? Like, it was very close to being a kill here. So what Rengar decided to do here is go for the maximum potential to get a kill. And he didn't get that, but you can imagine how often he would, right? So, if you're a very first blood-centric player, that's what you can go for. You just look for where you think someone is, and in lower elo, you might go with the lower Variance Relay and go to red buff, because the chances in low elo that someone goes red buff are higher, right? So that's just things to keep in mind. Once you know a lot about junglers and what their routes are and what different elo players do, you can just very quickly figure out, should I meet her or should I go to the other side, and make a decision, right? So do that in your games. It's really gonna pay off. Like, even if you mess it up sometimes, like in the long run, if you play like this guy, right, play this proactively, eventually you will start to know how you can make it work, right? It will take some practice, but eventually, once you do that right, it's gonna pay off, right? So once someone pops off, I usually stop my analysis, because honestly, seeing someone just absolutely dominate someone and take every single camp and kill absolutely everyone isn't the most learnful, right? Like, well, if you're 10-0 as Rengar, you could be a bronze scrub here, and, well, would be hard to give that lead away. So, it's like, I don't really care about what happens at that point, right? Sure, Rengar is really proactive and really good, but it's just, it doesn't cut it for me. It's not worth the time to go into it. And, yeah, like, look at how proactive, like, look at, boom, deep port, hey, Shyvana's low, let's go kill her, right? How many players would have gone back here, but not this guy? He goes, boom, oh, I spotted Shyvana, let's go kill her. Very good stuff. Also requires some coordination sometimes. Sometimes you have to deep port, but if you can get your top laner to do it, just ask him. That's great, right? Like, that's just fantastic if you get that intelligence early on. So, that's it for this one. Make sure to be proactive with your jungling. Think about the route that your jungler is going to take, and if you are about to get, if you think you're going to get invaded, you want to counter it by trying to stay away from someone. If you actually have the pressure on someone, you want to try and kill them. And if you don't think you have a jungler that can kill them, you want to just take as many camps, right? Sneak into the other part of their jungle and steal those camps away. Those are kind of your options, and those are what you can base those decisions off of. And I hope you guys learned something from that, and I'll see you in the next one.